Hey there, welcome back to Point of Sale, the retail supply chain show where we break down great retailers, the supply chains that move them, and the data they use to make decisions. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and Senior Retail Analyst here at FreightWaves. And today's episode is one I am very excited for. I think I'm going to learn as much in this episode as any of the audience. We're talking about the future of food delivery. We're talking about micro-fulfillment at lightning speed, the 15 to 20-minute delivery speed of 3,000 to 5,000 SKUs happening in this industry. It is a very competitive industry. They've got many players that are well-funded. There's been over $1 billion invested into this industry over the last year since the pandemic began. So there is a lot going on, a lot of very promising companies. And with me to distill all of it, talk about some of the trends, some of the companies to watch, is Mr. Matt Newberg. He is the founder of a really cool startup called HNGRY. I'm gonna let him tell you all about it, but I do wanna take a moment to thank my sponsor, ArcBest. ArcBest is more than logistics. Whatever you do, whatever you ship, ArcBest makes it easier for you to do business. ArcBest combines reliable capacity, innovative technology, and trusted relationships to take the complexity out of your supply chain and keep your shipments moving. That's what makes ArcBest more than logistics. All right, Matt, my man, thank you so much for taking the time. He is rocking the HNGRY shirt today. That is, of course, his company. So tell us a little bit about HNGRY and why you started it when you did.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yes, I started HNGRY in 2019, and it all kind of started with ghost kitchens. I saw that about 2/3 of the restaurant industry was already going off premise, and had heard rumblings of Travis Kalanick from Uber's next startup, and basically decided to make a documentary that took a firsthand look at some of the restaurateurs that were adopting the fully fully off-premise digital model with ghost kitchens, creating their own virtual brands. Some had existing retail locations, and others were just going full on virtual. And as I kind of peeled back all these layers of the onions, I just realized how much this was going to transform the way we eat. And, I basically decided to stop everything I was doing, some consulting for a food delivery company, had worked in tech as a product manager, and basically just dropped everything, decided to start documenting what I was seeing week over week within, trends within grocery, restaurants, alternative protein. But, the heart of what I've been doing has really been around the next generation of food delivery and what that's going to look like within the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's kind of at the intersection of food and technology HNGRY sits. We're going to talk about a few different business models here. I think we should start with just the fast delivery. This is the one I'm most excited about. There's a lot of companies, getting into this industry, into this vertically integrated model of owning micro-fulfillment centers, these dark marts or dark stores, as you will explain. Tell me about this model. Why are so many people jumping into this model? Why is there so much money pouring into this industry?
I think, one of the big proof points was GoPuff raising, $1 billion on, about $9 billion post-money valuation recently. And I think what makes those models unique is the fact that they're a first-party retailer. So, I would say delivery 1.0 was, Grubhub and Seamless Web, basically aggregating restaurants and allowing those restaurants to fulfill these orders from a fax machine that were faxed in from office buildings nearby and have bike couriers deliver them. The next wave was what we saw with DoorDash and Uber Eats and Postmates, basically enabling logistics for those businesses. But still, no one was getting into the preparation of the food. And now what we're seeing with cloud kitchens and with now on the convenience front with DashMart and GoPuff, and now these newer, faster competitors, this is a full-on vertical model where these companies are actually getting into retail and actually taking on inventory risk, and as a result are able to achieve 20-ish% net margins on a per order basis, which is very compelling. So the simple answer is it's a very profitable model if you can pull it off at scale, and you can get a lot of efficiencies when it comes to the picking and the delivery fulfillment from very small warehouses located at the last mile.
Is this a better business? You said, delivery 1.0, delivery 2.0. Is this, delivery 3.0? Is it a better business? Is GoPuff, the model of GoPuff, a better model than Uber Eats model, just being the third-party delivery?
I believe so. I believe that Uber Eats, if it's lucky, can get to break even, and I don't think that Uber really wants to see it really become or needs to see it become that profitable. I think they already have a profitable business in rideshare, and so what it comes down to for them, and they've even partnered with GoPuff, and I think that a lot of these companies would rather not invest in the upfront capital to actually build out stores and take on inventory risk. The Ubers and of the world, and just become kind of a demand generating platform. And obviously, DoorDash is, I think, doing its own Dash Marts as well. But I think the majority of its business will always be off the back of other retailers. It's just they're getting into some mix of their own. So I think it is a superior model, because the unit economics are very promising. But you still need to have something else. So if you're not going to do this, you need something else to make a decent contribution margin on. For Uber, it's going to be rides. TBD on what that is for DoorDash. If Dashmart is their kind of way to really generate significant margin, but it needs to fuel something.
Right. Let's talk about some of the nuances here of these models. So we've mentioned GoPuff, we've mentioned DoorDash, we mentioned Uber. Let's start with GoPuff, because this is, as you mentioned, raised $1 billion recently, got a $9 billion valuation. They're stealing tech talent from Uber and the likes of Silicon Valley's finest. So talk to me about GoPuff. They were started by two students at Drexel University in 2013, just kind of selling stoner essentials to college kids, but have quickly expanded into thousands of SKUs and in hundreds of markets. And they own their inventory. They, as you said, are taking this inventory risk. So tell me about their model.
Yeah, I think they started as a kind of instant need service on college campuses, not focused on food. There's very much jewel pods, rolling papers, things you would find in the pharmacy, kind of at eye level, and I think it was like 40 SKUs, right? And this was 8 years ago in Philadelphia, and they were kind of the early pioneers of the dark micro fulfillment model of just housing items in warehouses and delivering it within 30 minutes. It was pretty much just them, and Amazon has about 50 Prime Now locations where they're doing something somewhat similar. And so since then they've expanded and into I think more suburban metros and tier 2 cities, and now they've really gotten to the point where they acquired a retailer called Bevmo in California, which has about 161 locations, and they are a liquor retailer. And with that entire footprint, they will actually have about 400 micro fulfillment centers, and 160 of them will be retail stores. And I think the future is that they're going to become first and foremost, a delivery service that offers instant needs. And then second, they will be a retailer, and they will be expanding more into, I think, some of the things that you would be getting from an Instacart or grocer, and start to play really heavily in the grocery space. So what they've done with Bevmo is basically taken a liquor store and allocated about 25% of it to a mix of, everything from like frozen food to some, basic dairy staples and other non-perishables, or, center aisle items that are, have longer shelf life. And so they can figure out what those are and deliver them at a decent speed and cost to the consumer, then I think it's a very disruptive model.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to ask you was, which of these models presents the most utility to consumers in your mind? Because when I see, the big thing that people complain about when they order food from, DoorDash or Uber Eats or Instacart even is the delivery fees. I mean, they can be steep many of the times, but that's one of the calling cards for GoPuff. And one of the calling cards of vertically integrating and owning the inventory is that you can generate your margin on the product itself and not generate your margin on the gig economy workers that are delivering the food. So, I think
Sure.
their flat fee is less than $2 an order, I think, at GoPuff. That presents a lot of utility. Is that the type of model you think that, or the type of offering that eventually wins out?
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to see another wave of smaller guys that are trying to compete against GoPuff that are basically waiving the delivery fee and having no minimum size of orders. And so the hope is that, like, even if you order a can of Coke and someone delivers it to you, that at some point, those orders are fewer and far between. Um, and I think it's really, the question is, like, is there a real big gap between a service that can offer you 30 minutes delivery of about 5,000 SKUs or 6,000 SKUs, and one that can give you maybe half that selection in 15 minutes? Like, the difference between 15 and 30 is, at this point, I think is moot. But I think it's really a marketing ploy to get people to think, that this impossible scenario, the scenario that was like impossible so long ago,
Right.
is actually here, and that they're going to try it out, and that hopefully, as these companies expand into more SKU categories, that they'll become loyal. So I think the utility is really in offering the most selection under an hour, and I think, you know, Instacart is signaling that they're also going to be playing in the 1 hour kind of time with some of the automation they're rolling out. And I think that's kind of where this is all headed.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched Ned's Declassified growing up, but they always had that one kid. He had the cell phone, and he could just call, and he could, have anything he wanted delivered there in like 15 minutes. And the guy would like fly up on a scooter. That's what they're pushing for, And I wanted to talk
Yes.
about some of those, smaller competitors that you were speaking of that are even faster, that maybe waiving
Sure.
these fees. I'm thinking of Joker, and I've heard of
Yes.
Gorillas. Talk to me a little bit about them, or
Yeah.
can they come in and take some of this market? And then as a follow up, is this a winner take most market?
So yeah, so those companies are, there's over a dozen in Europe and in the Middle East that are currently operating, and there's even like Delivery Hero, which is a publicly traded company, has been doing this for a while now. They have about 600, I believe, D-marts across the world, and the notable ones that have come into New York City are, like you said, Joker, which is backed by SoftBank, that raised a crazy round recently, and there has like 120, 130 million behind it. And then you have Gorillas, which recently raised at $1 billion valuation, and you have what else is there? Fridge No More, which is a local one, and then you have 1520, which is former Yandex employees. So Yandex has actually been doing dark stores in Russia for some time, offering that kind of last mile delivery. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Well, first, is it a winner take most market, and is the U.S.
Right.
lagging here in this industry? Are other
Yes.
countries and more densely populated areas further along?
Absolutely. I mean, this is Getir is kind of the pioneer. They've been in Turkey and Istanbul and different cities over there for a while now, and they kind of pioneered this whole model and have gotten really good margins through their relationships with big CPG companies like Unilever. We're talking about some 50% gross margins on some products. And so, is it a winner takes all market? I don't think so. I think it's a land grab, right? I think if it is a winner takes all market in New York, the question is like, how many of these things are going to? There shouldn't just be one for the Upper East Side, one for downtown. It's going to be one company that's going to own Brooklyn and Manhattan and the five boroughs. TBD on what that company is. It's going to be whoever can spend the most dollars efficiently. So, yeah, I do think it's. Basically it's a whole new wave of retail where you're going to see a lot of vacant spaces get converted into dark micro fulfillment centers that can offer this delivery through like an e-scooter or bike within 15, 20 minutes. And and then the stores that do have a storefront should be thinking about how they can actually turn some of this on. And I think that's going to be the bigger response is like, you have a retail store, you're already at the last mile of the customer. Why not do some sort of offering where you can basically mimic this kind of service for your customers?
Right, we're definitely seeing that with Walmart. They are building out their local fulfillment centers, as they're calling them, onto the back of the stores. They're between 8,000 and 20,000 square foot. I think they've got one right now in New Hampshire, but they've got plans for 20 of them this year. Target has also unveiled some plans to build more automated, micro fulfillment centers inside or on the back of their stores. So they're not going to sit back and just let this happen, right? There's going to be competition from the big guys as well. Amazon is obviously in this as much as anybody. I wanted to go back and ask one last question. Are those the BevMo stores? Have they been rebranded GoPuff? Do they have the GoPuff name on the stores?
So they are not on the main marquee. They have some in-store marketing. They've basically started to label they have like end caps on the ends of their aisles that promote it, and there's some little like door hanger type things hanging on bottles of products, and
Got it.
to get you to try not a QR code, but like a promo code where you can get free delivery. So they're really trying to build that flywheel between brick and mortar retail and online customer and online delivery, and build that kind of relationship and loyalty. And one interesting stat is that another company called Foxtrot, which has about a little bit over a dozen kind of new wave convenience stores in Chicago and DC and a few other markets, is that these guys started as kind of brick and mortar plus 1 hour delivery from the ground up, and they've seen about 50% of their sales go digital and 50% in store. So it's basically an even split between online and offline. And I think that's kind of the ideal state of what this all looks like. Is like, can you for an Amazon Fresh, for example, it's probably going to be much lower, right? Like, not 50% of people shopping inside those Fresh stores. It's going to be maybe 25. Who knows what it is, but those things can service a very interesting radius of prime customers. So it's going to be this flywheel between, like, obviously the dark stores don't have this, but the brick and mortar retail, like a BevMo, like an Amazon Fresh, and what that online experience is like, and how that all ties together.
Matt, what broad strokes can be painted about these companies? Like, what are these these fast, nimble startups? What do they have in common? And what are some of the things that they have that are doing slightly differently that separates one or the other from the pack?
I mean, the really nimble ones are going for a very limited selection of SKUs. The GoPuff is somewhere in between that and a Walmart or a Target or an Amazon. And so it just comes down to, I think, like a trade-off between selection and speed. But at the end of the day, I think people are going to be pretty loyal to their subscriptions of whatever they're a member of. It's Walmart Plus, Amazon Prime, and there'll be a battle on that front. GoPuff does have a loyalty program called FAM. So some of the things that they do, like what the little guys don't do this as well, but like I think GoPuff uses machine learning in the same way that Amazon does on when you land on the homepage to basically recommend you specific products given your location, and really understanding what that curated selection is. And I think these companies have been around a little bit longer, that they can actually, they already have that advantage of knowing what sells in certain markets. So that is something that the newer guys are going to need to test quickly. That cold start problem for a Joker, you have a ton of money behind you, but do you even really know what people want to buy? And you're offering a much limited selection. So another common theme is that the little guys are using e-scooters and bikes, and they're really focused on very dense neighborhoods, whereas like I think GoPuff is more, I think, suburban, and they're going to be using cars. Same with Amazon. I was surprised with Amazon Fresh and like how tight of a radius it was when I was a driver. It was about no more than a mile and a half radius when I was doing my undercover gig work for them. We can talk more about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I was going to
uh,
ask you about that. Let's just dive into that just for a moment because Matt did go undercover as not a flex driver but a grocery delivery driver, correct?
no, it was a flex. It
Oh,
was a flex
Flex has
driver. You
both.
can
Yeah,
sign
right.
up.
You can do both.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, so
Mhm.
tell us about your experience as an Amazon Flex driver for the couple days you did it.
Right.
As you said, very tight radius. You delivered a lot of goods. Tell us, also give us a little bit of the
Yeah.
unit economics, kind of the back of the envelope math you had done.
Right. The back of the envelope math is about 50 cents per bag, is what I figured out based on what I was being paid. And they figured out exactly, I gave them my make and model of my car, and they figured out how many packages, how many bags to give me at any given time, and then I would just basically do milk runs back to the fresh store to do it. And I did it two different ones, one in North Hollywood, and one in Northridge, out here in LA. And they have a model that's different than Instacart's legacy model of in-store shopper, where they have kind of it split between flex drivers that just pick up the orders and then dedicated full-time staff that works at the fresh store that picks the groceries and packs it all up. And some customers are paying additional fees for 1 hour delivery or expedited fulfillment. So I'm pretty confident that they selected their sites based on pre-existing demographic data that they had from their Amazon Prime customers, and try to figure out those like those neighborhoods with upward mobility. They're very middle class areas, and then the one in North Hollywood is actually on the ground floor of a apartment building with a lot of millennials, and it seems like tech workers that want nice amenities in their building. And so it's interesting over there because DoorDash has also identified this, and so has another company called Reef, which is also doing food delivery. So if you actually drive within like a 1 mile radius in North Hollywood, you'll see like these three companies doing something interesting. DoorDash has its own ghost kitchen out there, and so does Reef, and so it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is absolutely fascinating. And Amazon is you're right about that. They're so surgical in how they select things, the way that they move into markets. They copy what they need from the best and then cut them out. I'm glad you mentioned ghost kitchens because I want to talk a little bit about cloud kitchens. I read that article on Vice that I think you were mentioned, and this off-the-shelf delivery brands that they've been very quietly rolling out. And one that blew my mind was the Unilever's ice cream shop. You mentioned Unilever earlier, and apparently they've been doing this in other countries for some time. But just talk to me about what Cloud Kitchens is doing, especially with these off-the-shelf brands and helping restaurants sell. And I saw one pizza company was selling about under 32 different brands somewhere in Chicago, like just unbelievable. So walk me through that.
So Cloud Kitchens is a kind of a mafia, or like a conglomerate of lots of little entities underneath it, And so at the core is the real estate. They actually, unlike any other company in this space, not even Amazon owns its own real estate, and that's interesting. We'll get back to that. But on top of that real estate are, for each location that they purchase, they basically, convert it into a warehouse of 30 to 40 subdivided 200 square foot kitchens. And so in order to break even for an operator, given the fact that you're only selling on the major marketplaces, Uber Eats, DoorDash, et cetera, Grubhub, you need to generate, something close to $750,000 in sales. And so to hit that kind of hurdle and that threshold, you might need an additional revenue stream. So Cloud Kitchens has basically tried to help its tenants, pay their rent. And Cloud Kitchens also gets a percentage of all the sales that pass through them. And so, they've created, secondary, tertiary brands based on, I think they probably A/B test different versions of things and see what people click on. And it's the dumbest things that you could possibly imagine that are aimed at, stoner college kids, which seems to be a good strategy for this market. And they've even gone as far as licensing some of those brands outside their brick and mortar, outside of their ghost kitchens, to random mom and pop brick and mortars, promising them an incremental few $1,000s in sales per week. And so that's where this thing called Future Foods came in as kind of this, kind of a next bite competitor, which is, the virtual brand arm of another company called Ordermark, that's backed by SoftBank. And so the goal with that is to, basically they have a tablet that collects data on all these delivery orders on all the major platforms that they basically give to brick and mortar restaurants that are licensing these brands so they can source them and fulfill them, and they can collect data on restaurants that are outside of their ghost kitchens to see if there's an opportunity to copy what they're doing, or bring them into one of their kitchens at some point in the future. So they're attacking it on all fronts. And the cool thing about owning the real estate is they will leverage technology and having a better understanding what people want to improve the value of that property in a massive way. You can think of it like the people that own cell phone towers and sell them to the carriers. It's going to be a major roll up, something like that, where you'll have a tech company and a property company kind of feeding each other.
Yeah, it's funny. We're seeing similar things where it's a product company and trying to get into a media. FreightWaves is one of them here. A product company that uses media to attract customers and to generate more. So definitely a similar model. All right, we unfortunately only have about 3 minutes here, Matt. So let's. I wanted to do a new segment, and I thought of it about 10 minutes before we started today, and it's just going to call it "Shed Some Light." And I want you to shed some light on something that you're seeing in your coverage in your industry that not enough people are talking about.
The one thing that I think no one's talking about is that as much as we talk about delivery, we need to talk about out the window takeout sales. Prior to COVID, that was about 60% of restaurant sales. Was takeout and drive-through, and the other 3% of that 2/3 stat I mentioned at the beginning, that 3% was delivery. Obviously, delivery has grown a lot. It's probably more than doubled at this point from that point, but that's still very tiny, and it pales in comparison to what we're seeing with takeout and drive-through. So. And this all really was stemmed from looking at Olo's financials and what they've been talking about in their S1, which is that takeout is a much bigger opportunity than delivery for them.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the same is true for retailers at Target, Walmart, Best Buy, all the big retailers. I've long thought that BOPIS and curbside pickup, these services that allow you to cut your routine trip down by 90% at no additional cost, I think that presents so much utility to consumers. Whereas, delivery has a lot of, not only does it have a cost, but it's got hidden cost of having to schedule, get your delivery, make sure there's somebody there. There's a lot of difficulty there. So I love pickup and buy online, pick up in store. So I agree with you on that one. Matt, like I said, unfortunately, got to wrap this up, but I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody listening where to go to find more about HNGRY, where they can go and sign up for your newsletter, some of your content.
Thank you. Yeah, if you want to learn more about the latest and these emerging trends at the intersection of food and tech, head to hngry.tv. You spelled it just with no U, HNGRY.tv. There's a free newsletter, and if you're really, really interested in reading all the details and all the juicy stuff, you can check out Trends, which is the paid premium subscription where you can read all these stories about Amazon, DoorDash, and all these quick commerce players. Something new every week and exciting.
Matt, I've got 30 seconds, and I think we can fit in one more question. Why are you bearish on Ocado and maybe fully, CFCs, technologies that fully automated, centralized fulfillment centers? You got 30 seconds. Let's get it.
Amazon is building out about 1 million square feet of same-day infrastructure per major metropolitan market, and it's within, call it 45 miles of the customer. Ocado's doing 10 of them, and they're 90 miles, and they can only offer next day. Mic drop right there. So yeah, they've tried to backtrack and say they're going to add in micro fulfillment centers somewhere in between, but that will cannibalize the huge investment that they've already made into these $50 million plus massive behemoths.
All right. Matt, thank you so much, my man. This has been awesome. We'll have you back in a few months to chat again. Thank you so much. Everybody go to HNGRY and check out his content. That's been it for episode 14 of Point of Sale. We will be back next week with ArcBest. Thank you so much for paying attention. See you next time.